If you were to ask me what music is played most in my place, a lot of my family, if not friends, would say old school hip hop, R&B, ska, some would say classical, and some would say classic rock. But if you had to ask my wife what music is played most, she would definitely say jazz. The songs of Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, Sidney Bechet, these songs are played every day in my place. So it goes without saying that I'm super excited about my next guest. He's an accomplished jazz musician, he's a composer, and he teaches. And I'm hoping he's going to teach me more about the world I love in jazz, specifically in the world of the trumpet, the variations of the trumpet, the different types, the tones, the mutes. Take it away, Reuben Christman. Reuben Christman, how are you?
Yeah, good man. How are you?
Yeah, second take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just, I'll let the audience know that for the first time in my podcast, I had a tech glitch and I was just like, oh, what's happened with one of the cameras? The audio was fine, but one of the cameras just it kept coming on and then off. And so I got it serviced and it's sort of fine now. But I think we're more refined now, Reuben. We know each other a bit better. I've been over your house for dinner and...
we've had some good times.
Yeah, Reuben's a good cook. He cooked us some French beef stew with duck fat potatoes.
It was a very fancy night, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the asparagus. But, the one thing that I took away from that night, one is how nice your friends are, and two is your cutlery. Your cutlery just jazzed me. I was like, I need to get my hands on some really nice. But you said you bought that as a gift to yourself for moving in.
That's right. Yeah, it was a little celebration.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I was telling
a little splurge.
I was telling my folks about that. And Jocelyn, I was like, oh man, Reuben's got such nice. It's classic. It's like
it's talking me up, man.
Yeah, no. I'm talking up by cutlery.
By cutlery, yeah.
But look, the reason why I thought this would be a really good opportunity is for me and the audience to sort of know a bit more about the trumpet. Because you're a trumpet player, you were classically trained.
Yep.
And then you went into an R&B hip-hop band that involved trumpets. And, when you said to me you were in a hip-hop band, I thought, like everyone was back in the 90s. No, you were actually on stage performing. And I was like, oh, that was quite impressive.
What was everyone else doing?
Well, we're talking like getting up in a club and just doing a few bars and with a DJ. How many people were in your band?
It was 10, I think.
10, yeah.
I think it was 11 at one stage, but 10 was the kind of, and that was a traveling thing as well.
Yeah,
so,
it was good, man.
Yeah.
And the fact that you had the the trumpets going and the rappers and stuff, it was just different. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it was. As I've said before, it was a good time in our lives, and I look back on that very, very positively. It was good.
You should.
And, a lot of us still really keep in touch, and good memories. Good memories.
Yeah. And then you're in a trio band now.
Yeah,
which I really like. I've listened to more stuff on YouTube, a lot of stuff over and over on YouTube.
I've got to put some more up as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we're lacking a little bit with our.
Well, maybe I'll put a few. I don't know, 10 seconds up on the video clip or whatever, and I might insert some of the tunes, depending on what you give me, just so the listeners can listen as well.
Of course.
And you're like everyone else in the arts industry. When you live in Perth, to make an income, you teach at the same time. Yeah. So I just wanted to more or less find out more about you, but also why the trumpet, and then a bit more about the trumpet, the history of the trumpet, and musicians you look up to. And so at the end of this podcast, I sort of walk away with a bit more knowledge on the trumpet.
Sure.
And you've bought a few trumpets here today.
I have, yeah. I've got them on my side over here. So
that's good.
I'll pull them up and talk about, their differences and their coolness, I suppose. Yeah.
The coolness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The trumpet's very cool. It is. And it's got that sound that can be so brilliant. It can lift you to places which, and that's why it's used in the orchestra in such a way on those peak dynamic moments when the crescendo and when the finale's coming up, you really hear it just glistening like the cherry on the top of the cake. And that's why I love it. That's one reason anyway. But I mean, it can be used in such a versatile way. It can be used in so many different types of music. And I have actually done a lot of that, as we've talked about. I've used it in dub reggae bands and in contemporary music quite a lot, in funk music, and then eventually gravitated towards playing this jazz music, which I do now. So, which I personally think is the coolest and I suppose the most challenging music. It's never not a challenge, and it's never not boring, and you've always got something to work on.
Why is it challenging?
Because you can always get better at it. That's a simple answer, I know, but you really can. You can always master more skills. You can master more speed. You can memorize more. There's a lot of memorization that goes into jazz, not just memorizing the tunes themselves, but then the constructs of the tunes themselves, which is the chord structures or the harmonies, and then getting up on stage in front of a bunch of people and being able to replicate that with the pressure as well.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about this kind of threefold process. So it keeps you very busy. Quite often I'm sure a lot of guys that play jazz who are watching this would agree. You stay up very late at night doing this.
Yeah.
And love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm jealous because I've always been, look, I did keyboard when I was young, the piano.
Yep.
And I love that. So that was one instrument that I thought I'd really like to take up eventually. But, living in an apartment, it's quite hard. And I'll probably end up getting if we had a massive space, our dream would be to get something like a baby grand or something, But imagine lifting it up the stairs here. Yeah. But the keyboard,
I
at least.
actually own a baby grand, and it's in an apartment about 3 blocks from
Are
here.
you serious?
The piano player in my trio, it's at her house, and we have since I moved around this way. We have kind of talked about us moving it over here, but I can't find the space for it myself.
You've got a big apartment here.
Yeah, you reckon I should put it in there?
Surely it would fit in one of those rooms.
It's a big brown one. It's very pretty. It's like kind of dark mahogany looking.
The only thing is how's that going to go unless you sort of soundproof the walls?
Well, that's it. Hey, yeah. And I mean that's one thing I want to talk about today is how I play in a more kind of confined
that'd be
inner
good.
city place.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. You would have to soundproof a room, totally soundproof it, or have some very nice, compassionate neighbours.
Yeah, or rent a studio somewhere. Like I'm actually. Look, eventually I'd like to move out of here and get a studio. Once the money picks up and goes more, I'd love to get somebody that is a booking agent. See, I do all of that on my own now, and it's hard because I'm doing multiple things and then trying to book people. Normally, especially authors, are pretty hard because you got to read pretty much a book of theirs before they come on.
Sure.
And then, or get a summary of it, and just be able to talk. But with that sort of a thing, I'd love to have a booking agent, and I'd love to have a tech guy that can do all the technical stuff and do the editing, because it takes a while, to do that. But we work with what we've got,
We've got to strive.
Yeah. So
our dreams.
So tell me, for you, why? I know you just explained about the love of the cherry on top, and when you hear the trumpet. Do you remember why you got into and how you got into playing the trumpet?
Yeah. So I mean, it's not really an exciting story though. It was.
All right.
It was the story where I was 10 years old and I picked another instrument, and then the teacher said, "No, we want you to play this one," and I reluctantly moved on to it, and I think from there it gradually grew through good teachers taking me on and seeing people who are a bit older than me playing as well. I'm thinking of a couple of guys now who were 3 years older than me at high school, and hearing their sound and just wanting to be like them. So it kind of started there, and then through that, of course, then you start learning about famous artists and studying them. Even though at that stage I don't think you really know that you are studying, as you're listening to the music, but you certainly are. And then by then I'm at university and I'm studying it. So at that stage I was at UWA and I was studying with 2 very good young trumpet players. One of them, who was absolutely brilliant at the time, I'm sure he still plays amazingly, ended up becoming a police officer. He moved away from that.
Oh, really?
And the other guy is our principal player at WASO now. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, that was the year. So it's kind of sitting around with those guys for a couple of years and learning lots, as they were as well.
I think that's a key as well, isn't it? Playing with people that are better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
Just move this closer.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also having the resilience to go that's okay, that I'm not there yet, and I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to keep moving forward. Yeah. So I mean that's one part of it. Definitely is the reflection of learning, near other people, but also as I kind of stated at the start, it's the alone time.
Right.
As a composer, as a musician, the alone time is really important to kind of figure out what the hell you're doing, why you're doing it,
Yeah.
Those types of things. Especially if it's something really creative, like, what we're talking about, composition or jazz, those types of things. What type of sound do you want to make? Why are you making that type of sound? You know what I mean?
Wow,
because it's all
that's
really
good.
it's not just music, it's a reflection of your personality
Yeah.
as a stage musician, and therefore a reflection of your personality as a person.
So what are some of the techniques when you are alone to find that? What do you what give us give us an example of an hour alone with Reuben at night. Like what?
It's getting weird.
Keep it clean, Reuben. Well, with the trumpet, like when you sit down, what's sort of a process that you go through? Is there a process, or is it very just improv, and then you find a groove and magic, and then you analyze that, or is it how does it work?
If I may start by talking about what other people do.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so one very known technique in jazz is transcription.
Right.
So that means you're listening to famous players and you're writing down what they did.
Okay.
And famous writers did the same thing, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Filmmakers,
you have Hunter S.
same.
Thompson, writing down. Yeah, so I mean, it is a famous technique. I have done a fair bit of it, and I do a bit of it, but it's not my preferred, maybe because it is quite difficult. What do I do? God, this is a really hard question. I suppose I just sit back and I just let things roll along. So and repetition is really a part of it. So just playing over the same thing, but having a process within that repetition where you have to abide by your own physical constraints. So, I may go for just 15 minutes and then be reading a book at the same time. Yeah. So, if I do that and go 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off, it might be 4 hours later when I look at the clock and it's 1 a.m., and it's time to go to bed because I got to get up at 8 or, or 7 or whatever time it might be. So, kind of rotating things has always worked for me. So, I think if I think back to uni times, I learned that I could do that through really multitasking. So, I'll be living in a share house and cooking for the guys. I love to cook, as
Yeah.
And, I'll be stirring the stew, then I'll go back and I'll be writing an essay, I'll be reading something, and I'll be practicing. And then I'll rotate those 4 things. So for me, it's almost like this, I can't stay kind of fixed on one thing too much.
Sure.
Why not? I don't know. It doesn't get too intense or anything. Maybe I get too bored with it. But it's better if I kind of just move around that way.
Wow, That's cool. And last time I saw you, you were sort of making up your own composition in a more orchestral sense, like a classical.
Yes.
A classical piece. Like what brought that on? Was it just an inspirational thing? I'm going to do something here that's a little bit different to what I play.
Do you mean why am I writing that piece?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no kind of great story about that piece. It's more again just the practice of writing is quite important in my life as well. So it was about a decade ago now I started just tinkering around and learnt pretty fast that I had started with something which I thought was all right. And then if I kept working, obviously things get better because you become more skilled.
Sure.
So I'd move on and, now we're 9.5, 10 years later and things have just moved on. I've written a lot of little pieces and I suppose, Wayne, it's just the inertia thing. So like I don't want to stop.
Yeah, sure.
Or else, it might, things can drag out for a year and a half or 2 years
so
without
easy
doing stuff.
too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So for me, I set up these nights where I go, well, they're the nights when I do that. And these are the nights when I practice. So with that piece, it's just an ongoing thing. That one started July. I had July written on the title. Now it says February because that was the last time I changed the title.
That's not long ago.
No, it's less than a year ago.
Yeah, that's not long.
But I can say it's coming to an end.
Really?
Yeah, I was out last night working on it, and I realised, shit, this is this is kind of it. Yeah, so I mean the idea through friends looking at it is they have suggested, and I've agreed with them, that it might be a ballet piece. So then you've got the constriction of saying, well, if you've got a bunch of dancers dancing, you've got a time limit. You can't make them dance for more than, say, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not really acceptable. At the moment, I think it's about 11 and a half, 12 minutes. So, I mean, it definitely could go longer, but I can't, at the moment, I just can't see anything else happening in it. That might change next week, though.
Do you find, Reuben, that, when somebody put a label on it, like, Reuben, this could be ballet, then your creativity started to go and be constrained by time? Like you were just saying, you can't get them dancing for this long.
Absolutely,
yeah. Do you like that, or are you just like, I wish somebody didn't say that?
No, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think for a creative person, any practical restraints are a pain in the ass. But it's the reality of life, is that we have to live through them and live by them as we're making things, to make sure that they actually get produced. Or
True. Well, let's. I mean, if you don't mind, do you want to hear a few bars of what you've done? I can put it in later.
You want me to get it?
No, not now, but I can just put it in now.
Yeah, I can do that, sure.
Okay, let's, we'll cut to that, and I'll put a photo on the screen while we listen to that. Because I remember when I first, when I was listening to that, it was so different to what I was expecting, but it was cool. I listened to a lot of pieces like that, but more for, scores of movies.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of soundtracks by different composers, So my mind, funny enough, when I listen to that, goes straight to a movie.
Yeah.
And visuals in that sort of way. Well, I suppose like another musician would say, oh no, this is a real ballet piece in that way, Yeah. So
I think you hit the nail on the head, though. I mean, I watch a lot of film as well, and appreciate and love a lot of films. So I think for me, that is as much an inspiration as the time that I spend watching the symphony orchestras or classical pieces, or researching and listening to my own pieces as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, all that stuff trickles into your creativity.
It does, doesn't it?
And what comes out. So yeah, there's definitely a cinematic kind of element to everything I do, I think.
Isn't it funny when you ask to analyse your process? Because it's not just you.
Yeah.
I was talking to a writer, and I asked her the question, and a painter, and they're like, geez, I've never thought about that, And it's just, it's a question that probably anyone would ask. It's just they have never analysed their own process. It just happens so instinctively when you sit down at night and you start playing.
Yep.
You never sit there and go, what am I doing in this? And it's like the artist. I said to her, when you're painting, do you think, where does creativity come from? Is it an instinctive thing based on experience of your own life, or is it already out there and you're just tapping into that muse, and that muse is passing that through to you? And she was like, and then she actually said she thinks it's both. And she goes, also, I don't think it matters, So yeah, but what was interesting
That's an interesting answer. So why doesn't it matter?
Well, she just said because what was cool with her, Desiree, is she said whenever she paints, she's feeling something. Like if she's having a really shitty day, it comes through in the brushstrokes. So when she looks at the final painting, it's almost a narrative of her life during the painting of that picture. And she can see the parts where she was quite aggressive, and then quite, on top of the world, and, quite content just by the brushstrokes and what she was feeling.
Wow.
I thought music would be the same way. Because can you imagine if you're feeling frustrated?
Yep.
And you just pick up the trumpet and you just start improvising. Surely that feeling comes through the music.
Yeah, I think somewhat.
Or does it?
I think you can definitely play more aggressively, so that can really come through. So if you're feeling really pissed off, or if you haven't been paid by someone, or whatever the situation might be, which happens quite often in the unfortunately, but it does. Then I mean, that can certainly come through, and you can be playing maybe more forcefully, and it's very easy to do on my instrument. It's a loud instrument, isn't it? It's really loud. Yeah. So certainly, I think one constraint to that though is the song itself within jazz. So if you're playing something sweet and lyrical and beautiful, I think it does actually just bring you back to a grounded.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of the beauty, is that this is the paradox of what you're talking about, is it does actually bring you back to feeling good.
Yeah.
You come out of the gig going, well, that was great, and you've forgotten everything else that happened because you were so immersed.
Oh, that's great.
In those songs. Yeah. Nail on the head. That's why I do it. Yeah,
exactly. I think I spoke about this before, but that one scene in Amadeus when his father's going off at his wife, and he just walks into the pool billiard room, and he's got his music sheets and he's composing, and suddenly the argument fades out and his music fades in, and he just pushes this pool ball, this billiard ball on the table, and as it goes around the table, he's writing the notes, and then he catches it, and then he pushes it again. And it was just this moment I remember thinking, as a musician or as any artist, it's so nice to have that escapism, that you can escape into that world and block out this world.
Yeah, totally.
I think people have different devices that can do that. Yeah. But I think at least as artists, you can, it's a lot easier, I think, to do that.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think Mozart was blocking out his music world as well, though. He was a bit of a party pig. So
he was.
There's that famous story about Don Giovanni. Have you heard this one?
Yeah. No, I haven't heard
he didn't finish the score. I think it was barely done, and he finished it in one night just before the premiere, and that was after going out as well.
Wow.
So he would have stayed up all night, and I don't know how they would have done it though. He must have had a bunch of printers working with him to kind of complete all the pages. But
and here we are talking about it.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, that story. Yeah. So with the trumpet, first of all, who's your inspirations when it comes to trumpet?
Right. Okay. Jazz musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is. It's more jazz musicians than kind of the other guys. Although I have a great amount of respect for them as well. Living ones. It would be a guy who's in New York now, who originally was from, I think I might get this wrong, but I think he's from Tel Aviv. He's from Israel.
Okay.
Called Avishai Cohen. So if you look him up, you'll get either him or a famous bass player who lives in the same city.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so when Avishai, the trumpet player, brought his first album out, he called it Avishai Cohen, the trumpet player, just so he would, people knew which one they were getting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he makes some amazing sounds. And I think the thing that's different about, if you're talking about this compared to other styles of music, it's an investigation of the tone as well. So it's not...
You're talking about the trumpet or jazz?
Just jazz, jazz, trumpet or jazz in general. But, if we're talking specifically about trumpet playing, you can do different things with your lips and with your air and your pressure to create a different tone. And then on top of that, it's the gear that you use. So, I mean, this trumpet here I like using is from the 40s, and it just has heaps of character.
Wow.
It's a Martin Handcraft committee. And then another thing which is going to change it even more is the variable of the mouthpiece you use. So I'm using one that has a very, very thick, a very deep cup. So that gives it, quite a deep sound. You can't play as high, so you're sacrificing some things, but
wow. So even a mouthpiece can change the tone.
Big time, man. Yeah, it's a very important thing. So
it's heavy, isn't it?
You find guys like us, we have 20, 30, I don't know, some guys might have 50 or 100 of these sitting around the house. I'm at about 22, I think, now. So
wow.
Yeah, it's important. But yeah, getting back to what you were saying before, so trumpet players, another guy from that part of the world is called Tom Harrell, and he's older. He'll be in his 60s now or something like that, but he's one of the fathers of kind of modern jazz trumpet playing and still kicking around doing it. And just, an amazing player. So every time, I think anyone would listen to him, you'll enjoy it. But when I listen to it, I'm learning something, and he's one guy that I do write down what he's doing. So yeah, really cool.
So it's like artists, like when we were talking about Kandinsky.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like you're drawn to his art for a reason. Like, I also know that you're a painter, but when I looked at some of your paintings, they sort of resembled a bit of Kandinsky's, like technique,
Yeah.
It must be the same in music. Like, there's a reason why you're attracted to the music that these guys play.
I think I'm attracted to the process.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, yeah, first and foremost, it's the sound. I think it's just a really cool form of music. And
Yeah.
it expresses this kind of coolness and, originally, I mean, people think of, when they think of jazz, New York and city streets and all of that stuff. But, I mean, why not? It's, it's just such a cool thing. So that's the first and foremost thing. But then secondly, it is about the process of being able to do it. So it's different to being, say, a classical musician where those guys are bloody perfect at perfecting what's on a page and making sure that it stands out as a recording would, and quite often they do get recorded and put on ABC after they play in the orchestras. What a jazz player does is they get up and they make it up, so they're like a composer but in real time. Yeah, so it's
wow.
It's a totally different animal. It's just a totally different way that you're using your brain to create something.
But that's when I listen to jazz, I don't know. It's just I love that process because there's a similar process in writing too. You can plan the whole piece out, like with scene cards and things like that.
Yeah.
And then you've got on the seat they call it a panzer writer. Stephen King calls it a panzer writer, where you're writing. It's like composing jazz, writing from the seat of your pants. So as a character, you're writing, but you don't know what the character is going to do next.
Yeah, cool.
And so as the story's forming, your character forms. So if the character is locked in a room, like Paul Sheldon in Misery, he didn't know how he was going to get out of that room.
Wow.
So it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
So every day he'd go to bed thinking, how is Paul Sheldon going to get out of this room tomorrow?
So it's like the writer's locked in the room for that time.
From what you were just saying,
Yeah.
it's similar. Like he's writing from the seat of his pants. He's composing. There is no plan.
Yeah.
He's forming it as he goes. And I took that technique on in the last writing project I had, which was a paid gig over a year. It was pressure because I had to deliver every 3 months. And there would be a week that goes past and I've got nothing.
It wasn't happening.
No. But it was so exciting to write like that. And so I can imagine jazz, every time you get up, there's this energy, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, one thing I've found is you become very close with people that you can rely on.
Yeah.
So if you've got a rhythm section, and I'm very fortunate, I've got one that I love to play with, and we're close friends and all of that stuff. But I can just rely on them. I know that they're going to be rock solid and they're going to get me through it. So you need kind of that as well, and that's because of the the insecurity that comes with doing something like this. It's very, when you get up and you do something you don't know what you're going to do. You have obviously a basic kind of theme and an idea. It's very thin. It's a skeleton kind of idea. But then you can go anywhere with it. Well, you've got to make sure that you've got some people that you can rely on to kind of get through it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now that we're, these people that are holding each other's hands, taking you through the gig.
Yep.
Like, tell us about your trio.
Can put it that way, sure.
And how long have you been playing with them?
Yeah, so we met, I'll tell you the whole story. So it was more through... it really started back at a community band that I play in who, I will mention him because he's a real mentor to me. He's a guy who's just turned 100 years old, whose name, I don't think you'll mind if I mention, is George Franklin. And he was an absolute killer player back in his day, and he still conducts. So he conducts us every Monday night just to, around this area
That's so cool.
in a band room. It's super cool. Anyway, through him, I met some musicians in the band, and I think it was around the time I was doing a fringe show. And we kind of realised, all right, we need a piano player. So we got a piano audition happening, and we got a couple to come down. And the one that we ended up picking was the one who now plays in the trio. So around that same time, we had a bass player, but he left, and we got another one who is the bass player that we now have in the trio. But at this stage, you've got to keep in mind there were 6 players. Now, where I was doing the fringe show is this place in Bassendean called O2, which is quite a large bar. And at the end of it, I got chatting. I was having a drink with the owner and got chatting about, he wants to basically start up this kind of jazz night there. So I kind of, I had a bit of free time, and I'm like, well, what about if I put it on and kind of start this thing? So, it was all happening. It was great. And that did happen for a couple of years, or a year and a half, something like that. But with the restrictions and whatnot, he couldn't afford to have a 6-piece band. So the trio was born.
Wow.
So that was kind of the beginning of it. Yeah. So that's Hannah Kim, who plays the piano. She's from Korea. Her and her husband have been here for about 6 years now.
So not long.
Not too long, no. I think 6 years, maybe 7. I'll ask her next time I see her. And the bass player is a guy called Max Jones, who, when I met him, and he was just filling in, as I said, for another guy who was playing regular and this wasn't long, man. This was like, I don't know, 6-7 weeks. We'd really been kind of,
Right.
working on this project to start this kind of 6-piece band. As soon as Max stepped onto the stage or into the rehearsal room and started playing, I just sensed this total difference. And that's one thing that, happens, it's an intuitive thing that we've all got. And I'm just thinking, I didn't say it to anyone, but I'm like, I want him, like I want this guy to play with me. So yeah, he's just stuck around for that reason.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he's a very cool guy as well, and good for a chat. So.
And you guys obviously gel, musically together. Yeah?
Zero politics.
Yeah.
I don't know how we've done it, but yes, if there's been any, it's been so minor that it could be squashed within, one conversation.
Did you ask Anna about the jazz culture in Korea?
Hannah?
Oh, Hannah,
Yeah.
sorry. I've got a friend called Anna Kim.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to get a confusing conversation.
So what about the jazz culture in Korea? Did you ever ask her about that?
Yeah, I've mentioned it to her, and we've even talked about going over and trying to play over there and whatnot. It's huge over there. So
is it?
They love jazz, and I haven't been to that part of the world. I'd love to go to Korea. I'd love to go to Japan.
Same.
From what it sounds like, I mean, if I say this now, a Korean person's probably going to go no, but it sounds like the jazz culture is kind of similar. That in that they both really love it, and it's a big thing. And I'll just stop there, because I know their cultures are extremely different.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as that goes, it's just it has really spread through that part of the world, and become a mainstream, quite popular thing. So they've got a jazz festival on Jeju Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is it's a tourist destination. I think there's a good horror film set on Jeju Island, actually. Yeah, and a good gangster film I saw recently. So it's used in a lot of Korean cinema. Yeah, but until recently, their kind of guest of honor for that jazz festival was Chick Corea, who played for Miles Davis in the 1960s. He played in the Isle of Wight. The Bitches Brew Band and whatnot with Keith Jarrett playing the organ. Well, Chick Corea was the other guy, so he was playing either organ or electronic piano, something like that. So I mean, he passed away a year and a half ago.
Oh, really?
Like that. So yeah, really sad.
But for him to go there, there must be a culture there.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. They they revered the guy. So
wow.
Yeah, I mean that would have been really cool to see, but yeah, unfortunately,
I do know, because I know when I watched quite a few food programs in some of the old clubs in Japan, it was all jazz. They were playing jazz, like even the old liquor bars and stuff.
They love it, don't they?
Yeah, so I reckon you'd have a ball there.
I wonder how much of that is the influence of the Americans, in Okinawa.
I think big time.
Yeah, big time. Hey, yeah,
big time, because I do remember there was I think he played the sax, and what happened is during the war. The parents, this is one of the kids that's now older, and he's got a daughter. But during the war, they weren't allowed to play any of the American music. And they used to go up into their attic. This is one of the stories on a food program.
Wow. Okay.
And they used to go up into the attic and listen to American big band. So Benny Goodman and, And she remembers, so what happened is that father, then when the war finished, he became a jazz musician, and then he had a daughter who's now playing, and she's quite old now, but she also DJs. She's the oldest DJ in Japan.
The oldest DJ in Japan.
Yeah,
that's a title, isn't it?
Yeah, and she goes in a glitter jacket with the big sunglasses. And during the day she's cooking in this restaurant. And she's playing, all this music. So yeah, so I reckon.
Cool story.
I think these countries could surprise you. We always think of Chicago and New York and some places in Europe. Who knows? Like, I think Japan and Korea could really surprise you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard a story that if you go to the Japanese jazz clubs, and it's probably not all of them, but I've heard this story that you have to actually pay to get up and play.
Oh, is that right?
You know what I mean? So there's a real honor in. Just being able to get into these clubs and get up on stage. Oh. So yeah, I think it is. It's a highly valued art form over there.
I know you've travelled a bit, because talking about your travels.
Yeah.
But I'm like you. I've got we want to do a bit more of Europe, but I am dying to see the East Asia, literally you
me
know,
too.
Taiwan.
Big
Taiwan,
for jazz again.
yeah, Japan, Korea. You know, I'd love to go to those places.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. So who knows?
You just got to be thinking. Most of the places I've travelled to have been not that important has jazz been. Yeah, I think there was a famous jazz musician in Hanoi of all places.
Oh, really?
In North Vietnam at one stage.
Yeah.
You heard about this absolutely cranking club, but I never made it out there. Yeah, I think my travels haven't been about that. It's more just experiencing different cultures and the stuff people normally do.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Having said that, I've got one coming up that I'm planning for the end of the year, and I was debating with a mate about it the other day about that, and saying, man, it's almost damaging to a player to go for weeks and weeks without playing, especially on things like trumpet. So if we do it, we lose all these kind of muscles that we've built and, all of that type of stuff. So,
right.
So it it's kind of heartbreaking to go, well, I went on a holiday, but the payoff was this. So I'm thinking about going and, performing along the way.
Take your trumpet with you, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is to the States, or I should have said.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
I mean, and jazz is, jazz is from the States.
Yeah,
so it should be too hard to find a
birth
few
of
places
jazz,
to play here and there.
Especially
just
going
get
to
up
the
at jams and
can you imagine
practice
going to the old clubs that Bird played at? And
Yeah,
Miles
the ones that are
Davis
still
and
around.
Charlie Parker, Dizzy. I mean, it's all there, isn't it?
A lot of them, yeah.
Oh man. So Reuben, tell us about the trumpet. Like, tell us the variations. Like you were talking about the mouthpiece that changes tone, and a lot of the jazz musicians have, like, you've got 22, and some of them have 50.
Yeah.
But
and there's famous stories, and on other instruments, of, say, like a person loses their special mouthpiece. That's the end of their career. That's it. Like they lost it on a flight or whatever, and that's it's over. That's it. Done.
Oh, geez, can you imagine?
Well, I don't know. I chop and change. I go, oh, this is the best one I've ever had, and that lasts for about 6 weeks, and then I find something else, play another combination. Go, this is the best one.
Your career's over because you lose something.
Then I'm not too stuck on anything ever.
So lift up. What's the you? So you were saying this trumpet's about 80 years old.
Yeah, I think it's 1940 or 1941.
For the listeners, Reuben's just holding up this.
Can I hold this in your camera?
You can, but I'm just
it's got an
describing
engraving on it.
Oh, okay.
I just want to show them that. So this is it.
And bring it back. Sorry, I'll move my head. There you go.
There's something here to cut out.
But describe it for the listeners.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so this. I mean, if I'm going to go way back to the family that made it were Martin, and it comes from Indiana. He was a German from the century before, from the 19th century, and he migrated over to America and started this company in the late 1900s. So, the trumpets from the turn of the century and on are all really good quality, but with trumpets, it's not like, say, a Stradivarius violin where, they can get restored and they'll go for another 700 years. The metals do corrode. So, those older ones, you can definitely get them restored, but people generally, I suppose maybe it's a fashion thing as well, man, but they do kind of play these ones from that heyday, what I mean? So if you do play a vintage horn, it's from, the times of when Miles Davis was coming up, or
but do they
have
into
that time as well.
Do they get seasoned?
Do they get seasoned? Yeah, I think they definitely change. If it's a negative or positive, I'm not really sure. And that's really up for debate. A lot of horn players hate vintage horns and the way they play because they lose compression. So I can actually describe that with this. So if I pull this thing out, you'll hear a popping sound, hopefully, because that means there's some compression.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and that's actually pretty good. But when I put it in, the fact that it doesn't push back means that the compression is, or the air is somehow escaping through there. So it means it's losing it slightly through its age.
Right. Okay.
So with that, I did ask a fella I know who repairs instruments and plays in WASO, actually, he's a horn player in WASO. And
for those overseas, it's the WA Symphony
WA Symphony Orchestra. Yeah. Rob Gladstones is his name. And he described it to me and said, well, you get more of a fluffy sound through that. So I think that's one of the kind of major issues with playing these vintage horns is the notes can... What does fluffy mean? Up to interpretation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you talking about very soft or...
I don't know. Yeah. I'm just telling you what he said, man.
Yeah. Can you... so this is your favourite, though? This is what you play?
Yeah. This is... for a number of reasons. It's... I will start, though, by contradicting myself and saying it is not my most playable horn.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's not
But
contradicting.
it is my favourite. I love the tone of it. So I love
Yeah.
the way that it sounds. And it also plays classical music really well, even though it is known now as a jazz horn. When it was made, they didn't give a damn. You know, it was just played
Sure.
for anything. So, you know, it could be marching bands or classical music. So it's really just a trumpet. Having said that, I've got another one that isn't here that's more playable. So
Okay.
say if I'm playing stuff that is more acrobatic, meaning it moves very high and low and fast and slow and everywhere. This other one, which cost about 1/7 the price of this one, by the way,
And
is a lot better.
What is the cost of something like this?
Oh,
a
Jesus.
vintage horn, like a vintage horn from 80 years ago,
Okay.
from Martin, right?
Yeah, that's right. So this is a Martin Handcraft Committee, and I paid $2,400 US for it. So it's quite a lot of money, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when you start to delve into the professional horns and ones, you know, that have a bit of a name.
Well, you know, I can see it, but you just don't expect it, you know, because I'm a newbie. I don't know anything about what things cost.
Well, it's all dull looking, isn't it? I mean, it looks like it could
No,
have
but
been in
that,
a...
well, to me, it looks more expensive when it's like that. Like if you pulled out a shiny, you know, polished trumpet,
Yep.
I'm thinking, well, I could go down to the music store and buy one of those.
Yep.
But when I see something like that, I already know there's
a
cost
relic factor
involved.
to it, yeah.
There's a cost involved, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
What are some of the others you got here?
Okay, so yeah, I did bring some to show.
Now explain
and
it
explain to
for the
people,
listeners.
For the
yeah.
listeners. So what I have here is not a trumpet. This is a Flugel horn.
Right.
So if you're going to look that up, it's Flugel and horn.
Yeah. It's almost like it's stretched out. It's a lot bigger to hold.
Yeah, and the bell's bigger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the diameter is probably another 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I don't know.
Lift it up a little bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just for that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay, and this one here is a French. So the French made these classic ones called guinons. This is a guinon from 1975.
Right.
And I mean, again, it's like a trumpet because it's a bunch of piping, and the way you play a trumpet is by making this sound and buzzing your lips.
Like a raspberry.
Yeah, which then sounds like this with a mouthpiece. You know, and then that buzz, of course, translates into music with the, you know, with the instrument
That's cool.
itself.
I didn't know the mouthpiece, literally, I didn't even know the mouthpiece would have a tone, as in before you plug it into the instrument.
Absolutely, and that's why, you know, as I kind of started the podcast, I was saying the shape of the mouthpiece is extremely important.
Yeah, wow.
So if I use one with a smaller cup, so you know, and say, I mean, there's a lot of differences, but say the end of it, this end, which is
Yeah.
called the shank, if that's wider, it's going to allow more air through it. So
Right.
if you do that, it can produce more volume, but it also means you need to play it more powerfully.
Sure.
So if that's thinner, that's quite important. The bore, which is the tiny hole
Oh, yeah.
in the center of it,
Yep.
if that's micro, so if it's really small, you can hit high notes a lot easier,
Right.
but it also thins out your tone. So there's always a payoff. There's a
Interesting.
flip side to all of these things. So you need to kind of weigh it up and go, well, what am I using it for? It's like a tool, you know, it's like a tool for a trade.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a Flugel horn.
But is this a...
I should play some of that because it's a really nice horn. if
Yeah,
that's all right. You want
yeah.
to hear something?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
What's a good Flugel horn song? I might have to move this a bit. Is that all right?
Yeah, go move the mic.
I'll just take this off a bit so I can hear
Sure.
myself.
That's awesome. Yeah, it does have a nice fluffy.
This one probably does have some leaks in it, actually, but yeah, I mean, a flugelhorn does that. That's the whole point. Is it
Yeah.
plays this kind of mellow, romantic kind of. Kind of, you know, mellow sound. You know, that's what it's really.
That's so
you know,
nice.
made to be able to do. So it's for the love songs. It's for the ballads. I mean, trumpets play it as well, but yeah, this is kind of, if you're slowing down and you're doing something sentimental and people are dancing, this is the horn you kind of pick up and play with.
That's...
Yeah. Do you want to see something else?
Yeah, so when Reuben's in love, you'll hear that coming from...
That's right, I'll just be playing it all the time. Okay, I've got one more here, which has nothing to do with jazz. So this is the kind of trumpet that they play in the classical,
right?
In the classical world. So that's a lie. In the classical world, they actually do play flugel horns, and they do play cornets, and they do play trumpets that were like the other one. That was a B flat. This trumpet that was pitched differently. So this might be a bit complicated to explain to non-musicians, but I'll try. So this trumpet is pitched to C, which means if I play a C on this and then I play a C on the piano, it's going to sound the same.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But if I play a C on the other one, it's not going to sound the same as a C on the piano.
Oh.
It's going to sound a tone below, which is a B flat. So the other trumpet's all displaced by one step.
That's why this is used more for classical?
No, this is used more for classical because it has a how do I put it? A brilliant open sound. It's generally described as being very open, so it just sings.
Oh, okay.
And the other one can be kind of blended with groups. It can do lots of its timbre is different. If I can put it that way, its tone color is just different. But this one fits better just with that idiom of classical music.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I can play something. Yeah. People want to never play this one. I'm just going to take these right off. Sure. Does that sound all right?
Yeah. So, you can... I don't know if it's what you played or not, but it's got a very crisp...
It just sounds old worldy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds like it comes from the old world. And I brought, as requested, I did bring some other stuff to show as well.
Yeah,
so,
please do.
So trumpet accessories.
So just explain again to the listeners.
Yep.
The poor listeners are going, what does it look like?
What are these things?
What does it look like?
Well, how do I describe these things?
They
Wayne?
look like little metal Turkish lamps.
Yeah, they're weird looking, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they've all got little bits of cork on them. So these are things that you put into the end of your trumpet to change the tone colour, the sonority or the timbre.
Lift one up in front of you,
Yeah.
because they won't be able to see that on
Okay,
camera.
so this is the one I use all the time, and you can see because it's...
No, this camera here.
Oh, that
Yeah,
camera,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm holding it up with my middle finger.
No, they'll see it here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Cool. Yep. So
this looks like it looks like a light aluminium bulb, a light bulb, really.
yeah.
The end you plug into the power obviously goes at the end of the trumpet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So a firm twist, and yeah, I mean it just changes that. So I mean this one, when I play it, I'm sure if you listen to any jazz or any jazz trumpet playing, you will know this sound. This was made famous by Miles Davis. I think, pretty sure. I may be wrong, but at least he was the first one to really mainstream it, with his commercial success. And he did. I mean, he loved to play it. And again, it was used for, instead of using the Flugel Horn, he used it for those kind of solo, lyrical kind of love songs, All right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just got that kind of... Well, I mean, because what it's doing, I mean, if you can see it, if you're watching the video, you can see that the bore of the trumpet, so that meaning the bell, has been reduced from, the size that it was down by what, 7, 8 times?
Yeah, definitely.
To this tiny little hole.
That's...
So then you get that kind of almost comical kind of... kind of sound, you know. But it's great. I mean, you know, with all of these, it's like I've got an arsenal of almost different instruments.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, that's the way that it kind of comes out when when you're playing with a group. It can certainly just change everything. All right, so the other two I got here are things that I actually don't use very often. They just kind of sit at home, but I brought them anyway for the educational reason. This is a normal stock standard straight mute. So this is very heavily used in classical music.
Right.
And
so this looks like a light bulb too, but it's a little bit smaller.
They're all just light bulbs.
For the listeners. You know what it reminds me of? The I Dream of a Genie lamp.
Oh, yeah,
lamp.
Totally, yeah. This one has a copper end, so I don't know. Apparently, that's supposed to make it sound better. But
okay.
You know, it gives it that type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then I've got, God knows where I got this from.
This is
I think this is called a bucket mute.
This looks like a Turkish lamp.
They're all just Turkish. I Dream of Genie lamps. Yeah. This, for the first 15 years of its life, it was full of cotton wool. So there's this kind of fluffy cotton wool in there. And at one stage, I got fed up, and I'm like, I got to pull it out to see how it sounds, and I just never bothered to put it back in. So now it just has this sound. Yeah, that type of thing. So yeah, it's almost like you got a Flugel horn when you don't have one.
Yeah. I was just going to say it sounded like the other trumpet. The
Flugel,
yeah,
it does. It really gives it that kind of resonance, doesn't it? Yeah. And then you were asking me, I mean, since we've met, how the hell do I practice all the practice that I need to do in an apartment?
In an apartment, yeah.
Yeah, having, being an apartment owner. Well, the way that I do it is with this one. So this here is a incredible device. I mean, this thing has helped myself, and I imagine a lot of trumpet players to really improve on what they do. This isn't the whole device. This is just the end of it. So it's the mute. But if I hold that up...
Okay, so it's something Reuben's putting... it's a little black device Reuben is putting into the end of the trumpet.
Yeah, it's made by Yamaha.
Yeah, and it's black, and it's almost... Okay, it's got a... yeah,
it's got a plug. It's electronic, yeah. So inside now there's a microphone.
Oh, okay.
So that's going to connect now to a cable, and then that connects to a... It's only like, I don't know, 5 centimetres by about 4 centimetre, very thin amplifier.
Right. And
the amplifier then runs to headphones, right?
That's cool.
So then... And also you can plug it into your computer, man. So that's really cool. So if I want to put a jazz backing band on, which I do all the time, I plug that in and run through tunes that I need to practice with, the backing. Quite often just, YouTube's great.
That's cool.
And I'm not actually just playing by myself.
Yeah.
And also it's got this, I don't know if it's fancy, but it's got this feature where you can make it sound like you're in a stadium or...
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
and like the
got
reverb.
over that pretty fast. But yeah. And if you hear that when it's actually in, it's not something you would actually perform with. So this is how it sounds to my neighbours, for instance.
Okay.
You can't really hear that through the wall. So, I mean, this is... I don't know what year they brought these out, but I discovered it, about 8 years ago. And, man, it's just made a big difference to my life.
Well, also being able to practice.
Oh, totally.
You're not thinking about the time and,
and that thing, that myth about jazz musicians, the song Round Midnight. It's all true. Like, we do actually, not like to play before midday and prefer to play around kind of 10 p.m. till... 2 a.m. in the morning is when your brain's really creative and, the juices are working.
Oh, man. Reuben, because those who don't know, Reuben actually lives in the same complex. We live in a city, so we're in apartments in the city. We're neighbours, yeah. And, I used to see guys who play electric guitar and they would take their little amplifier, they would go down to the Supreme Court Gardens at midnight and just open it up there. And, just to hear like a trumpet, like jazz trumpet over there in the middle of the night. We've got to take a walk one day and do it.
Yeah, I'll do that any time of the night or day. That's cool.
So if people want to discover, your music more.
Yep.
Is there anywhere they can go? Is there gigs coming up or?
Okay, for the trio, yeah, we're pretty minimal. I mean, it's a local band, but we do have a Facebook page.
Okay.
So the name of it is The Old Road Trio.
The Old Road Trio.
Yeah, or I think it's The Old Road Trio 69, just because I couldn't get The Old Road Trio.
I'll put that on the show notes anyway.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll put it on the screen for everybody.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a SoundCloud that I keep, my virtual audios of my compositions on. So that's it's SoundCloud Rumble Kink.
Rumble Kink.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of other places. There's some drop boxes, but yeah, as you mentioned, we'll put them up later.
I'll put them up on the screen and I'll get that off you. But man, it's been a pleasure.
I can't believe it's over. I'm really sad now.
Yeah, well, I learned heaps, and I'm sure people that will listen in and watch will also. I think you got to watch this one because to see the different types of trumpets and the attachments going in, it's actually really cool to see.
Yeah, cool.
But thanks so much, Reuben.
And just one more thing, I would be, us being in such proximity to each other, I'd be happy to answer any questions that maybe come to you.
Yeah.
For your viewers. So,
yeah.
If anything
any
comes
questions?
up, let me know, and I'll
will.
give the educated answer that I can.
And because you're a neighbour, maybe a regular, maybe next month or a month after, come back again. We can talk about life and stuff. Nothing too controversial. Thanks, brother.
Cheers, mate.
See ya.
Okay, see ya.